For those in the audience, getting to know you for the very first time, care to share where you were born?
I was born in Louisville, Kentucky.
And care to share where you were raised?
I was raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Well, Elkins Park, Pennsylvania, but it's right. It's really no different kind of growing up.
Is that outside of Philly, technically speaking, or is that a portion inside Philly?
It's outside of Philly, but just right across the street. Like we would walk into Philly right across the street. Yeah, it was interesting. It's interesting.
And care to share where you reside these days?
Right now, I reside in Georgia, Powder Springs, Georgia.
And for those that aren't familiar with Powder Springs, but maybe Atlanta, how far of a drive is that?
I'd say 30 minutes to get to the city.
So that's right outside Atlanta.
Right.
Okay, now can you give a chronological history here of from the time you were born, the different parts you resided throughout the years, till you got to Powder Springs?
I can do that. So I was born in Louisville, Kentucky. My parents never got married, and they decided to split. So we moved to Georgia first, actually. I lived in Georgia for not too long. Ended up going to New Jersey with my father, and that's why I tell people I was raised in Philadelphia because that was the place that made me, and a lot of the components of who I am came from that. So started in New Jersey, spent half a year there, went to Philly, spent 6 to 7 years there, then spent a year and a half in New York. Then I came back to Georgia because my mom wanted to see me graduate high school. So I finished high school here in Georgia and graduated high school. Went back to New York, moved to New York with my friends after high school just to do this art stuff and make something happen. After that, moved back to Georgia, and I've been here since 2019.
Now, you've mentioned a variety of states, but did you want to share more specifically what portions of those states?
Yeah, I can. So in New Jersey, I lived in Elizabeth. In Pennsylvania, I lived in Elkins Park, Philadelphia, Mount Airy, North Philadelphia for anyone that knows. In New York, I lived in Staten Island both times. So after Philly and when I graduated, moved back to Staten Island, and now I'm back in Powder Springs, Georgia.
And zooming out, when it comes to your upbringing, what was that like for you?
I had a good upbringing. I would say I had special treatment as being the only boy. I had, I got to have friends over a lot. My parents trusted me with a lot. They were very lenient on me. So it wasn't nothing too crazy. Have very close bonds with my sisters and things like that. So very healthy relationships in my family, and it was always just very immediate family. I have a couple of like cousins and things that I'm close with, but when it comes to being like a big family, kind of family, it's just very immediate on both sides.
Were the culmination of all those moves throughout your life during your upbringing pose an issue for you?
No, and I feel like that, because all of those things poured substance. I feel like not even substance because I am who I am, but those things helped me to accept who I am and to how to express who I am as well. Because I would say coming up, I was very reserved growing up with women. I spent a lot of my time with my mom and my sisters, so I kind of just kept everything to myself. And after moving to Philadelphia and things like that, that's when I got around other men and other boys and getting friends and brothers helping me learn how to navigate, really.
Now, what was the top point for you during your upbringing? What was your highest point or most positive moment growing up for you?
I will say my most positive moment growing up was meeting my friend Nasir. He's no longer with us. He passed in 2016, but he is the reason why I even started taking music serious, even taking art serious. I've always been into these things growing up, but he just put that pushing force behind it, making sure we recorded music and, hey, spending time drawing rather than just being outside all the time. So he really reinforced what I already had as a person and artist.
Do you remember how you two met for the very first time?
Yeah, it was like two things. So the first thing was, so being from Georgia, and I kind of was like under a rock here. You know, I just listened to the radio. I didn't really go online growing up, things like that. Um, so moving to Philadelphia, I remember these kids talking about Meek Mill, and they asked me if I liked Meek Mill, and I was like, McDonald's Mill, because I wasn't sure what that was in the first place. So that was his first interaction with me. He thought that was funny, and after that, we just got in trouble in class for laughing at things that were just not supposed to be laughed at, kind of things, and that's how we grew.
Now, what was he really like?
I will say Nasir was very bright. He was very tall as well. Um, Smart guy, very into music, and very talented. That's what I would say.
Do you remember the last correspondence you had with him before he passed?
Yes. So at that time, around that time, we weren't speaking as much. I had moved back to Georgia. School was starting, things like that. You know, our lives were going two different directions. But we did share that we still care about each other and that is love. Um, and that was really the last conversation I really had with him.
For clarification, was that a text conversation, a FaceTime conversation, a verbal conversation on the phone, a
It was
physical conversation in person?
it was a mix of both, of a FaceTime conversation and some text. I remember that because that same summer he passed, my older sister, eldest sister got married, and I was supposed to go hang out with him that summer, but I had to go to her wedding. So I remember talking to him on the phone then as well.
And how close did that communication take place to his death?
Maybe a month.
How were you notified of his passing?
Through his girlfriend at the time. Her name was Isabella, and I remember that day like no other. Like, yeah, I just was sitting at the dining room table and I was just playing the game, working on art because I used to have a laptop, so I would game on there. And she gave me a call, and yeah, she just explained what happened, and I couldn't believe it at first, but yeah.
And what age was this when that took place?
I was.
Or grade, perhaps?
This was my senior year. Yes, my senior year.
And had he graduated prior to his passing, or he was still in school
He was
himself?
still in school. We were in the same grade, but he was younger than me actually.
Now, do you have a favorite memory of him you'd like to share with the audience today?
Um, wow. I have a lot, so it's hard to really even try to focus on one. I'd say I do have a good one that I always share with my close friends, and I think I should share this. It was a time that, so in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, my dad has a house, and it's a very big house. So we were young, and I remember we were scared to go downstairs. So my room was in the attic, and I remember Nasir used the bathroom. He peed out the window, and it was at the same time that my dad went out to smoke a cigarette. And I think we went down to the kitchen, and my dad, he was just acting like everything was normal, and he was like, yeah. While he was exiting, he was like, yeah, remember? He was like, yeah, and don't pee on my head next time when he was leaving. So we just like stopped and looked at each other, and just was so embarrassed that happened.
Now, what's the best advice you received from him or most important thing you learned being around him?
I think the best advice that I've received from Nasir was to let your friends know that you love them, that it's okay to talk to your homies and let them know you love them.
And you mentioned there was music between you two.
Yes.
Is all of that public? Is
Yes.
any of that unreleased?
So the first song we ever recorded, I think, is about 8 years now. It is on SoundCloud. It's called Four Piece. It's under my SoundCloud, Fifthpower. And at that time, it was on, I believe, a b.i.g beat. And yeah, that was the only song we ever recorded. Yes.
Now, anything else you want to mention about him or a question you weren't asked? People want to know about him as well.
He loved Lucky. That was one of his favorite artists. He was his music taste was very diverse, and it inspired me. And I would say that's where I got my music taste, because before that it was very shelled, and I wasn't really sure of all of the music that I know now till I met him. So I would say, yeah, I'm a reflection of Nasir, really, yeah.
Now, hypothetically speaking, what do you think he would think of how far you've gone in the industry at this point?
Man, I think about that all the time, and honestly, I think he'd just be breathtaking. Like he wouldn't believe it. Like he'd be very proud, yeah, but it'll just be crazy.
What do you think would surprise him the most at this point that he wasn't able to physically see?
Just how far I've come as an artist, visual artist. The places that my art has been displayed and things like that. I think that he would have really liked that, and he would have thought that was really crazy.
Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, what was the bottom point for you during your upbringing? What was your lowest point or most negative moment growing up?
I may have to circle back to Nasir. I will say when I lost my friend, because, yeah, that would be the lowest.
Now, mentally, has this been something you sought any professional help over?
No.
Why not? Some people do.
I actually don't have an answer for that. I've always, whenever I talked about it with people that were in my life at that time, yeah, and they always recommended seeing a therapist and talking about it, but I don't know. I more so took it and wanted to express myself with it, and not really just put all of that into my art. That's what I wanted to do with that. It didn't feel like anything I couldn't handle, in the sense like I was really losing it. It was hard, but putting it back into something positive in the art and the music, I feel like has been the most healthy thing so far.
Be that as it may, do you want any professional help with that?
Yes. Eventually, yes. I feel like yes.
Now, how were you able to survive that upbringing? There are some that don't make it.
I will say having friends. Having friends and being able to experience a lot of things outside of just the home and where I was and my family. I got a new perspective of things and different perspective of things. And I'm just a very observant person, and I love knowledge and wisdom. And I think those things just, kind of kept everything together with the glue of the coming up.
Now, there are some people who say things like, don't know if I'll make it to see the age of 18. 21, for example. Did you have any of these thoughts yourself growing up?
Yes. I had these thoughts growing up in the sense of a lot of I got to see a lot of the police brutality firsthand growing up and being very young at those times, like Trayvon Martin, George Floyd. A lot of those things really left a stain on my brain, I would say. And then I would say on another end, I felt like I wasn't going to see a big age of maybe I would say 21 because of when I lost Nasir. I would say I was very okay with not being around.
Care to share what age you are at this point?
24.
And your birthday as well, the month and the day perhaps?
December 15th.
What do you make of that outcome now that you are on the other side of that equation?
Man, that's a really great question because I actually kind of went into that not long ago on Instagram. So I feel kind of psyched out now. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I'm just really surprised. Like, dang, I didn't really plan to go this far, but now we're here and it's kind of cool to see myself change and grow as a human and things like that. So it's cool so far.
And speaking of IG, for those in the audience getting to know you for the very first time, care to share your screen name on that platform as well?
Yes, my Instagram name is Fifthpower, Fifthpower.
Knowing what you know now, on the other side of that coin, hypothetically speaking, what would you have said to your younger self back then?
I'd tell myself to buckle in. You know, I wouldn't give too much, but I'd definitely tell him, just keep doing you, bro. You're good. You're good, man. Just don't give in. That's definitely what I would tell myself.
Anything else you want to mention about your upbringing or question you weren't asked? People want to know about that.
No, that was good.